It all started that evening when I, Mike, came back home to our two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Dallas, where I live with my wife, Katie, and her mom, Susan Miller. 3 years of marriage. The stage when it feels like you've already tried everything in the bedroom, from romantic candles to spontaneous experiments after a cheap bottle of wine from the corner store. But that evening, Katie, my Katie, with her sly smile and little dimples, suggested something that almost made me drop the grocery bag right at the door. She was standing by the stove, stirring a pot of chili whose smell filled the whole apartment, when she suddenly said, "Mike, how about I tie you up and blindfold you?" "What for?" I squinted, kicking off my sneakers at the door and tossing my jacket onto the old couch. "Come on, it'll be fun. Don't ruin the mood, just say yes." She winked, and there was something mysterious in her tone, as if she had planned more than just a playful game. I shrugged. Katie always knew how to spark me up in a second, and after a long day fixing computers at the office, I wanted something, anything, that would shake off the routine. She led me into the bedroom, where the walls were still covered with floral wallpaper we'd put up right after the wedding. Skillfully, she tied my hands to the headboard with an old leather belt we usually use for suitcases. Then she wrapped a silky scarf over my eyes, the same one her mom had given us at the wedding, embroidered with flowers and smelling faintly of lavender. "And your mouth. I'll tape it shut," she giggled, pulling duct tape from the dresser. "Otherwise, Mom will complain again that we're as loud as a football stadium." Yep, we lived with my mother-in-law, Susan Miller, just 40, but she looked so good that men on the street turned their heads and market vendors gave her discounts. Tall, with the same toned figure as Katie, only more mature, and a confident look in her eyes that always made me feel like a teenage boy again. Sometimes I even thought that she and Katie looked more like sisters. Only Susan seemed to know some secret my wife hadn't figured out yet. Living under one roof wasn't easy. She complained that we watched Netflix too loud, hinted that it was time for us to move out, or left notes on the kitchen counter reminding me to take out the trash. But overall, we got along. Sometimes she even spoiled me with her famous homemade pies, impossible to resist. "Fine, bring your little toys," I grumbled, already expecting something exciting, though a thought crossed my mind that this might just be another one of Katie's tricks. "Surprise," Katie giggled, adjusting her strap. Susan covered her mouth with her hand, but her eyes were shining, like a girl falling in love for the first time. "Are you too serious?" I laughed nervously, though inside I was burning with anticipation. That night is one I will never forget. They were like two sides of the same coin. Katie, bold, confident, teasing as always. Susan, gentle, yet with a hidden fire that revealed itself more and more. Time blurred, leaving only whispers, laughter, and the warmth of something I could barely believe was real. The next morning, the smell of coffee and pancakes pulled me from sleep. Katie and her mom sat in the kitchen like best friends, chatting about groceries at the market. When I walked in, they both turned and smiled at me in unison. Susan handed me a cup, her fingers trembling slightly. "Thanks, Mom," I said, letting my hand brush hers. Katie rolled her eyes with a grin. Great, now he's going to get cocky. Months passed, and our life quietly changed. Breakfast for 3 became a new ritual. Laughter at dinner, secrets behind glances. To outsiders, we looked like an ordinary family. Me, Katie, and her mother, who could easily pass for an older sister. But inside our walls, we shared something unspoken, a secret that tied us together tighter than anything else. Sometimes, over tea, we remembered how it all began. Katie would laugh, confessing how scared she was that I'd get angry when I found out. Susan would blush, admitting she never expected to enjoy it as much as she did. And I'd just sit back, sipping my tea, thinking to myself, this life is like winning the lottery, something no money could ever buy. Of course, there were small costs. Twice the bouquets of roses, a flower seller at the market who now knew me by name. And lately, Susan had dropped a hint. We should all go on a trip, somewhere by the lake. The sunsets there, they'll take your breath away. Katie laughed, adding, "We'll bring a tent. That way nobody can complain about the noise." We all burst out laughing. Susan blushed, tossing a kitchen towel at her daughter. And in that moment I knew the secret, this strange new version of family, was ours to keep. Katie pretended not to know anything, though I was certain she understood more than she let on. She hummed cheerfully while washing the dishes, maybe a little too cheerfully. Susan, on the other hand, blushed whenever I caught her gaze, and I found myself waiting for the evenings with a strange, almost reckless anticipation. At dinner, her hand would sometimes brush against mine as she passed a plate, and I'd catch the spark in her eyes. Once, when Katie left the table for a moment, Susan leaned in and whispered, "Mike, please don't tell anyone." I nodded, hiding my grin. The secret only made everything more dangerous and more exciting. A few days later, over dinner, Katie suddenly broke the silence. While pouring soup into my bowl, she said casually, "Mike, what if Mom joined us? You know, sometimes." I nearly choked on my drink, setting the glass down with a thud. "You're serious? Right now?" She smiled, her voice calm and deliberate. "Of course. I like that she likes you. I see the way she looks at you." Susan froze, her spoon slipping back into the bowl. "Katie," she began, but her daughter cut her off. "Mom, don't start. We're adults. And honestly, I don't mind." I looked at Susan. Her face was flushed crimson, but in her eyes was something else, something that told me she wasn't entirely against it. That night, the three of us sat around the table like we were planning a home renovation, but instead we were setting new rules. Katie spoke quickly, as if outlining chores. "Okay, Mom joins twice a week. No surprises. Everything clear. Mike, no stunts like in the kitchen." I joked, "And if I want more?" winking at Susan. She nearly jumped in her chair, but there was a spark in her eyes. The first official night was Saturday. We ate homemade dumplings we'd made together, laughing at how I kept breaking the dough. After dinner, Katie led me into the bedroom and tied a scarf over my eyes. But instead of moving closer, she sat beside me on the bed. "Mom, you know what to do," she said. I heard Susan's nervous cough, then felt familiar hands. But wait, something was off. The movements, the rhythm, too sharp, not Susan's. I tore the scarf from my eyes and froze. Both of them stood before me. Katie and Susan, dressed in matching black lace, like they had planned this moment together. I lay there, trying to convince myself it wasn't true, but the sandalwood fragrance betrayed her again. The next morning at breakfast, Susan carefully avoided my eyes as she poured tea with trembling hands. She wore her favorite light blue robe, the one that somehow made her look younger. Katie, meanwhile, kept throwing me sly glances, as if testing whether I'd say something. I stayed silent, though inside I was boiling. All day at work, the images wouldn't leave my mind. The whispers, the scent, the shadow of that night. I even spilled coffee on my keyboard, drawing laughter from my coworkers. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I came home early, before Katie returned from her job at the bank. Susan was in the kitchen, moving gracefully in a summer dress that clung to her figure. Cutlets sizzled on the stove. Onions lay chopped on the board. I stepped closer, my voice low. "I know it was you. That night you didn't resist." She froze, cheeks flushed, the wooden spoon slipping from her hand. For a moment, silence filled the kitchen, broken only by the sound of sizzling oil. Her eyes flickered, torn between fear and something else. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, heavier with every breath. That evening changed everything. From that moment on, a strange, unspoken atmosphere settled over our apartment. One filled with secrets, guilt, and something dangerously close to desire. Katie stormed out, slamming the door, and I heard footsteps creaking on the old wooden floor. A minute later, someone touched me and then lowered themselves onto me. But something felt different. The rhythm, the breathing, not Katie's. My whole body tensed, trying to understand what was happening. The clock on the wall ticked past 2 a.m. Who else could it be? Just the three of us in that Dallas apartment. My hands tied, eyes covered. She made small noises, almost deliberately hiding her voice. It was clever, too clever. But they hadn't thought of one thing. The scent, not Katie's light floral perfume, but something deeper with a trace of sandalwood. The exact fragrance I had once given Susan, my mother-in-law, for her birthday. My heart pounded. Could it really be her? Or was I losing my mind? After about 20 minutes, she disappeared into the darkness. Soon Katie came back, humming softly, untying my hands with a smile. "Well, Mike?" "Crazy, right?" she laughed, tossing the scarf onto the nightstand. I pulled her closer, staring into her eyes. "That wasn't you, Katie. It was your mom." Her cheeks flushed. But instead of surprise, I saw a flicker of a hidden smile. She bit her lip, sat on the edge of bed, and finally whispered, "Okay, you caught it." She always complains about us being too loud. But the truth is, she wanted this too. I thought you wouldn't notice, and we'd just have some fun. I exhaled, torn between shock and excitement. You could have just said it. She's beautiful. And honestly, it felt different, more intense. Maybe we'd do this again. Katie looked at me, half shocked, half amused, then laughed and tapped me on the shoulder. "You're unbelievable, Mike. Don't push it. We'll see." The next night, it happened again. This time, bolder, more daring.